Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today is week 2 of the Stash Buster block series. And today we are going to do a block that's called Cog Wheels, and this is the block here. And it's very similar to the autumn tints that we did last week, in that it's got a 4-patch unit and a single patch unit. The difference is the colors are laid out differently. We're going to go ahead and do this block, and I think this will go pretty fast too. So what you're going to need are 2 contrasting colors. I'm going to use white and this teal, and you're going to need the same cuts from each fabric. So you're going to need a 4.5-inch square of each fabric. So I have a white and this teal, and then you're going to need 4 2.5-inch blocks of each color, so white and teal again. So I'm going to adjust the camera and we'll get started putting this block together. Okay, I'm going to start with laying my pieces out on my ironing surface. So I've got a white and then my teal. They're going to go opposite each other. And then I'm just going to lay out my pieces to give myself some room here. That beeping is my iron telling me that it's shutting itself off. So it does not stay on very long once it's idle. So here we go. So this is the layout, and so I'm going to work on my 4-patch units first, and I'm just going to lay those pieces together, and I'm going to seam on the right side of each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and chain piece them all at once, and then I'll cut them apart and press them, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I'm going to adjust the camera towards the sewing machine so that you can see this a little bit better. Now I always find that when I am sewing blocks, stitching blocks together, that it always helps me if I keep an ironing surface close by so I don't have to keep jumping up and pressing things, because with piecing you want to press as you go to give you a better finished outcome. But it gets kind of tiring having to jump up, and even though it's just a few steps, it can just wear you out. So if you've got one of those portable ironing surfaces, those are great. And I had one of the cut and press boards, but I wore it out because I used it so much, because they're great to take on retreats and that kind of thing. But I've worn it out, and so I've just made this DIY ironing surface. Okay, those are all done, and I'll just clip my threads between them, and then we're going to press towards the dark side. Okay, I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm just going to lay them all out with the dark side up, and I'll set my seams. So just set those seams, and then press the seam open. And you don't have to use iron, or you don't have to use steam on your iron for this. And in fact, a lot of quilters recommend that you don't. So if you're the one who doesn't like steam, then don't use it. Just use a dry iron. Okay, so now I'm ready to make the 4 patches, and we're just going to alternate the colors. So we're going to do this, and we're going to sew them together, and we're going to butt these seams so that they nest together like that, and sew them with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. Just line up the raw edges, make sure that seam is nested in there, and move on to the next set. Okay, time to press again. Now in this part, it doesn't matter which way we press the seam allowances because they're not going to match up to anything. So I'm just going to press them just to one side. So one of the whites is going to have the dark pressed towards it no matter what you do on this one. So since there are 2 white patches in there. So I'm going to put my pieces back in order, and now I'm just going to sew these sections together. On this, on these units, sewing them together, I have to watch to make sure I don't let that seam flip. I want it to lay flat, so just make sure it goes under that presser foot and doesn't turn, and that looks like it's doing okay. And do the same with this one. And this one I'm going to turn it this direction so I can see it. And this one's already facing the way I need it to go, so we should be okay here. And just line up my raw edges here. Now by the time I get done with the series, I'm going to have 2 blocks of each done, because I'm doing a sample before I videotape it to make sure I've got my measurements correct. So that should help me clear out my stash pretty well. Okay, now it's time to press, and I'm going to press towards the solid piece, or the single piece, and that way the seams will be nesting correctly, and also I won't be fighting the seam here. So let me turn this one and roll it that way. Okay, so here we go. Flip those 2 together, and once again I'm going to nest those seams together right there, and I'm going to sew this together, and then the block will be done. So I'm making sure my seam is nested and my raw edges are even, and just going to sew this last seam. I can get hold of my thread there. There we go. Okay, and there's the finished block. Let me press this one and I'll show it to you in a little more detail. Okay, on this one it doesn't matter again which way you press it, but I'm going to press it towards this dark piece. Just press the block nice and flat. And there we have the cogwheel block. Now I'm not sure what this would look like in a whole setting. I mean, there's different ways you could lay these blocks out. But I like this block. I like the fact that it's just two colors, and like you do it in the aqua like this, or the teal, or a blue and white, red and white, yellow and white. You could use blue and orange, green and purple, red and green, you know, whatever colors you want. Just pick two colors that you like and make a cogwheel block. And I don't know what the original setting was, if this was supposed to go around like this, maybe. If you can see, I have to bring that down a little bit. But you could see how you could make a whole quilt out of this, and you'd have a real interesting design. So that is block number 2 in our Stash Buster series. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, I hope you will click like and consider subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.